Hey everybody, it's Allison, the Holistic Homesteader, and today I'm going to show you how I make my meatballs. Not with the bacon though, that's for another day. Alright everybody, so I moved that bacon from the intro and I'm going to show you how I make these meatballs. I'm not going to actually eat the meatballs tonight, I'm just going to prep them, I'm going to brown them off and I'm going to add the sauce and then I'm literally going to let it cool on the stove and put it in the fridge and I'm going to use it for tomorrow night's supper. My hamburger is thawed, I just wanted to get it cooked up and it's just one less thing I'll have to do tomorrow. So if my kitchen's already dirty, why not cook it while I'm at it? What I have here is all of my ingredients. I have 2 pounds of ground beef. I have Italian seasoned breadcrumbs. I'm gonna use 2 eggs. Now I'm going to use 2 eggs because I have 2 pounds of ground beef. You can definitely use just 1 pound of ground beef. What I am going to do is I am going to actually make a double batch and I'm going to brown them both off and then I am actually going to separate it and freeze half of these meatballs. And then the next time I want to have pasta and meatballs, my meatballs are already done. All I have to do is heat them up and put them in with sauce, right? So I'm going to make a double batch. You want to use 1 egg per pound of ground beef, okay? So we have 2 pounds of ground beef. We're going to use 2 eggs. We are going to use a 1/4 cup per pound of breadcrumbs. So I have a 1/2 cup measuring device here. I'm going to use a 1/2 cup in this recipe. Then I'm going to add salt and pepper. I will probably use about a tablespoon of salt and maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. I'm also going to use onion powder, garlic powder, and Italian seasoning. I am probably going to use about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, a tablespoon of garlic powder, and a tablespoon, of onion powder. All right, so I'm just going to put everything into this bowl and then I'm just going to mix it all together. I'm going to crack my eggs into the bowl first just so I make sure that there are no shells. It's really crazy to us that our chickens, the girls did the video the other day, I'm not sure if you saw it, but our chickens are in a molt right now and we're not getting any eggs. We haven't had eggs in months and months and months. And I know my sister-in-law, she has chickens too. She doesn't get any eggs really either. So we had to resort to buying these organic Nature Promise eggs. And it's really, really bizarre to us to see these eggs because the yolks are so yellow. And it's so weird to us because our chicken eggs are chickens free range 24/7. And we do supplement with organic food. But their egg yolks are so orange. So it's really bizarre for us to see a yellow egg. And if you haven't had any actual real free range chicken, crazy chicken lady eggs, then you're missing out. You need to find a crazy chicken lady to give you some eggs. All right, so there are our 2 egg yolks, no shells. We're gonna add in our 2 pounds of ground beef. All right, so I cleaned up my mess. I have my 2 egg yolks down in the bowl with my 2 pounds of ground beef. I'm going to add in a 1/2 cup of Italian seasoned breadcrumbs. Remember, you're using 1 egg per pound of ground beef and then a 1/4 cup per pound of breadcrumbs. Now I'm going to add in my salt and pepper. I used about a tablespoon of the ground pink Himalayan salt and about a 1/4 teaspoon of the black pepper. Now I am going to dry my hands really well because they're a little bit wet from washing them. And I'm gonna add a tablespoon of each of these, the onion powder, garlic powder, and the Italian seasoning, a tablespoon of each. And I'm just gonna, I say I'm gonna dry my hands really well because I'm going to measure it out in the palm of my hand. So an easy way to do a tablespoon is just fill the palm of your hand. So that's about a tablespoon. Tablespoon of garlic powder. I'm one of those people that I pop the top off. That just slows me down. I'm here to cook and get out. I'm not here to dilly-dally. And a tablespoon of the Italian seasoning. Now I am going to mix all of this together. I'm just going to use my hands to do it. And I am going to form out my meatballs. So one way for you to get an equal-sized meatball is to form yourself out a little meatloaf and then score it halfway, and then that's where you're going to break it into half. Now do the same thing for these two halves. Score it in the middle and break it in half. Now you have about 4, a little bit bigger than baseball size balls of hamburger. Now I like my meatballs kind of on the bigger side. So I am going to split that ball into half, and then each of those halves is going to split again in half, and I'm gonna have 2 meatballs. So I'm going to form these out and just sit them in here. I have 2 pounds of hamburger in here, and that made 8 meatballs per pound. So I have 16 meatballs in here, and I'm going to brown them off now over on my stove in my pot. I'm probably gonna have to do 8 and 8. I'm gonna have to do half at a time. These don't have to be totally cooked through. You just wanna brown them through. Once the first batch is browned, I'm going to pull it out, because remember, this is a double batch. You can reserve half of this in your freezer for the next time you wanna have pasta and meatballs or a meatball hoagie. I'm gonna brown off the first batch, I'm gonna pull it out, I'm gonna let it cool, and then I'm gonna freeze it. So the second batch, I'm gonna brown them off, and then I'm going to add in my pasta sauce. And I'm just going to probably pick up the brown bits off of the bottom, and then I'm just gonna shut the heat off and I'm gonna let it cool down, and I'm gonna put it in the fridge because it's tomorrow night's dinner anyway, so I don't really have to go to the extent of letting the sauce simmer. Now tomorrow, whenever I cook these meatballs in the sauce, I am actually going to we always eat at 5, we're very traditional that way. I'm probably gonna put my sauce on at like 3:30, and I'm just gonna let it simmer really, really low until it's time for dinner, and that way it incorporates all of these good beef flavors into that pasta sauce. So, all right, I'm gonna brown these off. All right, so I have a drizzle of avocado oil already down in the bottom of my pot, probably about a tablespoon. I get this at Walmart. I'm going to turn my power burner on to probably like medium high, and I'm gonna let this get really, really warm, or if not hot. And then I'm going to add in probably 6 or 8 of my meatballs, and I'm going to let them brown onto the one side. I'm going to use my tongs. I'm going to flip them and brown them on the other side. I'm going to use this splatter shield I got off of Amazon because I know that this hot oil, once I put my meat down in here, it's probably going to start popping. And we have an fan up here with a light in it and stuff, and it's stainless steel and it gets really covered in stuff. But if I use this splatter shield, then it saves me a little bit of cleanup work later on. All right, so I can see my oil rippling. I am going to start putting my meatballs down in. So my first 8, I'm going to just let cool, and then remember, I'm going to put them in the freezer and I'm going to save them for another day. This is going to make another meal another day. My husband can take some of these out. He can heat up some sauce and make himself some meatball hoagies, or if maybe one of us is running late that night, some night for dinner, we can turn this into a really easy pasta and meatball. So I'm going to babysit these for a few more minutes. So once these meatballs here are browned on both sides, I'm going to add in 2 jars of Newman's Own Organics marinara. All right, 2 jars of that. Just gonna stir everything together really gently because you don't want to break your meatballs. Shut the heat off, and then remember, I'm gonna cook this tomorrow, so I'm just gonna let that cool here on the stove. I'm gonna put a lid on it. Once it's completely cool, it's gonna go in my fridge for tomorrow night's supper. These ones back here are just hanging out. They're cooling off, and they're gonna get bagged up and put in the freezer.